This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Lunchtime Show. My name is Graham Stanley, and my guest today is Eugenia Carrion Canton, and we'll be talking about critical citizenship.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Lunchtime Show, everybody. As I said in the introduction, Eugenia Carrion Canton is my guest today, and we'll be talking about critical citizenship. Eugenia is an experienced educator in teaching English as a foreign language, with a diploma in English language teaching and a bachelor's degree in English literature from the National University of Cordoba in Argentina. She holds a postgraduate degree in educational management, a postgraduate degree in educational innovation, a postgraduate degree in education and ICT, awarded by the National Ministry of Education, and another postgraduate degree in governance and management of institutions. She is currently preparing her master's thesis in education at the National University of Quilmes in Argentina and pursuing a master's in foreign languages at the University of Lujan at the same time. She has extensive experience teaching English as a foreign language, in cultural studies, and in critical citizenship at various levels. She has spoken at renowned national and international conferences and has published in international journals. Previously, she served as Vice Rector at Paulo Freire Teacher Training Institute and as a curriculum developer for primary and secondary education and initial teacher education in the province of Tierra del Fuego. She's currently serving a second term as president of FAPI, that is the Argentine Federation of Associations of English Teachers, and she is a research lecturer at the National University of Jose C. Paz and the National University of TDFAEAS. I don't know how to pronounce that properly, sorry, and is in charge of innovative educational projects at the Innovation Agency of the province of Tierra del Fuego. And I will be speaking to Eugenia after the Teachers Talk Radio news.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for BetUK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, BET has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The BBC reports that the Scottish Government has been defeated in a vote calling on ministers to expand free school meals to all primary school pupils. Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth said the government was committed to the universal rollout of the free meals, but that funding was not available due to financial pressures. The Scottish Government said the expansion would be limited to P6 and P7 pupils in receipt of the Scottish Child Payment, after First Minister John Swinney confirmed £500 million worth of cuts. The government cited prolonged Westminster austerity and record inflation as the main reasons for the funding gap. Scottish Conservative education spokesperson Liam Kerr submitted a motion calling on the government to give the meals to all primary pupils this parliamentary session, as promised, and said the SNP had shamefully betrayed Scotland's poorest pupils. The non-binding motion passed by 64 votes to 2. 60 abstentions were recorded. Children's Commissioner Nicola Killian said the rollback on universal free school meals was a broken promise to children, and that the move would exacerbate stigma and shame around free school meals. Schools Week covers the Education and Skills Funding Agency, which will be integrated into the core Department for Education by March next year. The move will happen over 2 stages and give schools a single point of contact for financial management and support. The ESFA is currently an executive agency of the Department for Education. Schools' financial support and oversight function will transfer from October the 1st and be brought together with the Regions Group, 9 areas overseen by regional directors. This will support the launch of regional improvement teams by January. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said this will provide a single seamless voice to schools and ensure that financial improvement is central to school improvement. Funding and assurance functions will be centralised on March 31st next year, when the ESFA will close. Set up in 2017, the agency is responsible for delivering and assuring £75 billion worth of funding for 25,000 educational settings. But the ESFA is the second education-related quango to be axed under the new government. The Institute of Apprenticeships and Technical Education is expected to close by April. ASCL have welcomed the changes if it produces a more efficient and joined-up approach to the oversight of school and college funding, but also said it would not solve the overriding problem that the current level of school and college funding is totally inadequate. The TES says that there are serious dangers in assuming schools are back to normal post-COVID. This is according to a report commissioned by Head Teachers and Leaders Union ASCL. Tim Oates, Group Director of Assessment Research and Development at Cambridge University Press and Assessment, writes in the report that schools are still dealing with challenges. The report warns that schools will continue to see challenges unfold for the next 5 to 10 years, as children whose development was impacted by the pandemic move through the system. The paper comes as 5 children's rights organisations has called on the government to remove the long shadow of the pandemic from children's lives. The report says the range of problems include increasing absence, widened attainment gaps, impacted reading and maths progress for certain groups, and worsening mental health and social and emotional skills. It also warns of research showing that children who were born or were very young during the pandemic face diminished social, cognitive and language development. Mr. Oates says the government must urgently work to remedy these problems rather than accepting them. A Department for Education spokesperson said it is determined to improve the life chances of all children. Finally, in the USA, KSBY News reports that California proposes a ban on large loads of homework in public schools. Assembly member Pilar Schiavo has authored the Healthy Homework Act, which would not ban homework, but which would mandate local school boards and educational agencies to establish homework policies that consider impacts on students' physical and mental health, with input from parents, teachers and students. The proposal comes as a survey of more than 300,000 American students conducted by Stanford University shows that 45% of students say workload and homework are their number one causes of stress. And 13,000 California high school students who took the survey report an average of 2.5 hours of homework every night. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
So welcome everybody, and welcome especially to my special guest, Eugenia Carrion Canton. Eugenia, how are you today?
Very well. Thank you for the invite. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for this.
It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you. Eugenia, I'd love to start by just asking how you became involved in education, how you became a teacher. What was it that led you to this profession?
Well, actually, I've got more than 20 years of experience in teaching English as a foreign language, and I've always been in touch with teaching since when I was a little girl. I had that strong vocation for teaching and also for English, right? Had a great passion for learning English since I believe that since I was 4 years old. So all my life I've been studying English, right? Just for the passion of it. And little by little, I turn something that I like to say is that it was not until I started working at initial teacher education, and especially at the institution where I've been vice rector for more than 8 years, that is called Paulo Freire, that I discovered that I was not only a teacher of English, but that I was an educator who teaches English. And well, that changed my life forever, I would say. So, well, and this is, it is a great adventure, I like to call it, right? Teaching English in this case, and many other things that come together with English.
Wonderful. And it does sound like from your introduction that you're quite interested in continuing study. I think, am I right in thinking that you're taking 2 masters at the moment at the same time?
Yes,
Wow.
2 master's degrees at the same time. I am actually finishing my dissertation and master's in education at this moment, writing the final piece. And well, I have just started a master's degree in foreign languages, I would say. And so I go on studying, right? That's my passion, as I told you before. And I think that, well, usually teachers are all the time working on, right, continuous, let's say, professional development. This is something that it's for us and for our students as well.
It's so important, isn't it? To be a lifelong learner, I think. If you're a teacher, you need to keep up your interest.
That's it. Definitely.
Definitely. And what courses are you teaching at the moment? One of them is on citizenship. Is that right?
Yes. This is one of my areas of interest. I've been, right, as I am a professor at 2 universities in Argentina. I am based in Tierra del Fuego. and I teach at two universities. Usually, right, my areas of work are related to cultural studies, intercultural studies, literature, and history. So because of all this, right, or I would say that I expanded on the development of critical citizenship through the arts, I would say, and through the development of literature. So as I told you some minutes ago, Graham, it was not until I discovered that it was educating, right, what moves me, right? In this case, teaching English as a foreign language and some other content, and something else that we could turn, like give a twist into the teaching, that I expanded on the development of critical citizenship. That it was something that, I mean, developed little by little, and that I tried to put into practice in my classes, in my courses.
Fantastic. And I want to talk more about critical citizenship in particular. But before we do that, have you always taught at university level, or have you taught in other areas of education?
I did at the beginning of my career. I started, I mean, kindergarten and primary school first, then secondary school, and initial teacher education, right, has been, I mean, with the development of my career since the beginning, I would say. Later, right, university studies. So, right, working with pre-services teachers is something that I'm really interested in, and I've been doing all the time while I was working in primary or secondary schools.
Right. So it naturally led you to where you are now.
Yeah, well, now there are two areas of interest that I like to move forward and that I'm working on. On the one hand is, as I mentioned, right, everything related to the teaching of English at initial level, initial teaching education. On the other hand, I've been working at different institutions and entities, government entities, in relation to, let's say, the organization of institutions, the practicum, curriculum developer, right? So I've been working in projects related to innovation. So, well, you see, I'm a curious person. So I'm working, right, in everything that is related to changing, right, or at least to collaborate with some changes in education and in linguistics policies and all that. So I've been working on that.
Fantastic. And if we move on to critical citizenship now, could you, Eugenia, give us a kind of brief description of what it is exactly? What is critical citizenship, and how does it relate to language teaching?
Okay, so the first thing that I would say is that critical citizenship, it's an approach. It's an approach to materials, to content, and, well, to the way in which, I mean, teachers mediate with the contents we are teaching, actually. But basically, right, this concept of critical citizenship, in my case, and through my experience, right, is based in two authors that I deeply admire. On the one hand, as I mentioned, Paulo Freire, right, the Brazilian educator.
Yeah.
Well, that definitely, right, was able to make visible, right, the local context in teaching, in specifically teaching adults how to read and write, and also to highlight the reflection about the learning and the language that he was teaching. And on the other hand, the Australian sociologist Raywin Connell, that has also been working on many issues related to social justice in education and the different focuses, right, specifically on the global south. So with these two authors, we may say that critical citizenship is a concept that is made up of three other concepts, according to Connell and to Freire. On the one hand, we've got social justice, as I mentioned before. Well, this idea, this notion, basically, generally speaking, I would say there are many definitions of social justice, but this notion that all people in society deserve fair and equitable rights and opportunities, and also access to resources. And also the concept of citizenship, right? In relation to what a good citizen is or should be like, and should be some, let's say, the one that is able to participate in democratic constructions with a sense of identity, and that is able to work with others, right, in responsible decisions, I would say, taking action in his or her own community, I would say. And one more concept that is coined by Connell, that is what she calls good education. I love this concept because this is something that she highlights a lot. And even though she is a sociologist, we can transfer this concept into the world of ELT very, very accurately, I would say. For her, she says that, let's say, good education is that education that is able to be practical, basically speaking, right? That is related to the real world. That is also sustainable, she says, that this means that is related to the welfare of society over times. That is also pro-social, that is related to social justice and usefulness of knowledge, and also creative, tackling the nature of learning, right? The fact that, I mean, good education works at two levels, at an individual level, right, to expand the knowledge of that individual that is learning, and also at a social level, expanding, right, the work, let's say, working collaboratively with others and being part of, let's say, bigger project, I would say. So, let's say, in my humble opinion, I believe that we could say, well, many teachers I have, we have discuss or reflect upon this and say, well, okay, but what is this? I mean, critical citizenship related to the world of ELT? Well, and as I said before, right, this is should be part of the mission, in my opinion, of every educator at every school. And of course, we are not ready for that, and that's why I said we are not ready for that, or we not when I started at the university. Now I think that there is a more wider, let's say, a vision over that, but on the responsibility that being an educator implies, no matter whether you teach, right, sciences or math or English, right? And I would say that critical citizenship empowers art and also benefits students from working on what we call the 21st century skills, right? Like problem solving, critical thinking, and many others, right? Collaboration. So it's quite beneficial for students. And I believe that it collaborates a lot for teachers into reflecting upon this, the civil or the political role of teaching, right? So, well, I guess that I expanded a little bit, but well, this is what I believe it is like.
Oh, thank you for that. That's it's very clear now. And how, when you come to approaching the actual teaching of this with students or teachers, where do you start? How do you get them involved and interested in critical citizenship?
Well, usually what I do is I start from what I feel more confident about. As I mentioned before, I am a teacher of literature. So the arts, let's say there are many ways in which you can develop critical citizenship with students and with colleagues. My ways are related to the arts, basically literature, also mentoring, by means of mentoring, and by means of community projects, I would say. These are the three, right, like axes or let's say areas in which I believe that there is a place for the development of critical citizenship while we are teaching, of course, English as a foreign language, right, as an additional language, right, without let's say forgetting about teaching grammar and vocabulary and pronunciation and many other things. So, but it is let's say the way we approach, right, that texts would lead us to the reflection and also the making concrete action into let's say the local community. So once we teach let's say grammar, vocabulary, and we work with let's say synonyms, or maybe we develop parts of the body and description of personality, then we do something else with that story we are working on.
Interesting. And if you were to give us an example of a community project, for example, that would be useful, I think.
Yes, okay, I can give you one. Well, you know that there are many community projects we've been working with at the initial teacher education. I'd like to include this kind of projects every year with my pre-service students, right? So that they are part of something that transforms the community a little bit. For example, right, there are community projects related to gamification to teach English, right? For children, this is a real project that took place some years ago together with the town hall of the city where I live, right? So our students from fourth year in initial teacher education designed a program with, of course, gamification as a framework, right? To make it real, right? For students of primary school, right? For free, in the town hall. So in this case, for example, they work with a frame of Minecraft, and they taught English as a foreign language in that let's say context, I would say. Another one, right, is the language camp. That is something that is very simple to do, right? It's not that you need, right, to go far away, but every year, right, students, pre-services teachers design a language camp, let's say, thinking about one theme. For example, last year it was Malvinas, right, or Antarctica, or many other topics that are related to our local area. And they prepare a day out with students of primary schools where they do their practicum, or secondary school where they should not only be speaking in English, right, all the time, but also, right, playing games, let's say helping students to overcome difficulties and to do things in collaboration. And well, some voluntary work in relation to teaching of English, right, during Saturday mornings for the community as well. This is something that, on the one hand, benefit them for the practice they do, right, in the teaching and learning of English, and also that they provide something to the community they are immersed in. And one that I love is one that we did like a couple of years ago with students from the biology department, pre-services students from biology department. The project was called TDF al tacto in Spanish. It's touching, right, TDF. And what they did was the construction of maps and audio guides for blind students at secondary schools. So they build up maps from the province of Tierra del Fuego, right, with different materials. And students from, let's say, the English department did the audio guides in English. So they worked together, and that was something that was donated, given, right, to the public libraries of every single school. So as you see, things are not very complicated. What is more important for me is that those projects that you could be projects or lessons or activities that could be very creative, or something that is something, let's say, quite, I would say, innovative in the class, move out of the class and let's say mediate as a content for other communities that are also involved in the teaching and learning of English, and not to have it only as a theoretical idea that comes out in a moment of inspiration in the class, in which this is fine, but their critical citizenship is not fully, let's say, explored. Doesn't matter whether it is, let's say, totally or full. What I mean is projects can always be improved. But for me, right, what is more important is that you start doing something and that you can see that product ready into the community you are immersed in, right? So I think there are many things that we can do during the pandemics, for example, something that as we couldn't, let's say, be face to face at the teaching training college, what we did is to create, and that was an examples of collaborative work, let's say a platform with classes for primary and secondary, of course, classes of English as a foreign language, for classes for primary and secondary students, that they can manage, right, on their own. So that was also a creation from themselves. We collaborated. Of course, there are some classes that are very creative. There are some others that are not, but they are ready and everybody can have access to that.
Wonderful. It's quite a range of different projects. I see how the focus should be, particularly, it should be practical. It should be related to a need that you've determined within the community. Like, I really enjoyed hearing about the MAP project for the blind students at secondary schools. I would love to hear a little bit more about that, actually. And how did that come about, for example? Was it something that you or your teachers or the libraries had determined was something that was needed? Or I would love to hear a little bit more about how the genesis of that project came about.
Well, depend on the project. Sometimes the need is very clear. In that case, in the one about the maps, the need came from the, let's say, special, let's say, the schools with special needs schools, sorry, that demanded that they didn't have enough maps of the province of Tierra del Fuego available for blind people. So there was a specific need, and we answered that. And you know what? We had to learn Braille, how to write in Braille in English and in Spanish, just to make the codes of the maps. And later on, we need to, let's say, develop the content for the audio guides. So students and teachers learn at the moment that let's say, I wouldn't say solve a need, but collaborated with that material. In some other cases, that the need is discovered, I would say. Something that I like to say, let's say, to my students, is that it is not that we are, let's say, the community of the people or the university or the initial teacher, let's say, teacher training college, the institution that brings knowledge to another group. It does not work like that. There is an interaction there, and we learn a lot of things with the community. We are experimenting, exploring, learning, because in many cases we only taught English, but we learned many other contents that we didn't know. The same happened, for example, with the project of podcasts. We created some podcasts with local characters from the city, right? Historical local characters, of course, in English. And we, let's say, had to do some research about that, because not all the students, I don't know if you know about Tierra del Fuego, but this is a province in which there is a great migration of inhabitants. So people come from different parts of the country, I would say. So usually they don't know much about the history of the island. And well, we did that research, and later on we focus on the level, and then we had to talk to the librarians of different primary schools to learn what was the need they had. So that's why I say it is not that we are on the place of knowledge, we hold knowledge, and we are going generously to share that. It doesn't work like that. It is an interaction. Sometimes there is a need, a linguistic need. Some other times it is the concretion of a project, for example, like the one I like to mention that is related to teaching English to the community. There is a great need to teach English everywhere, right? Let's say in the last, I would say, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and many people, especially adults in Argentina and here in our province, I would say working classes were not ready, right, to face the challenges of let's say interacting with words in English, right? So we decided to create a program teaching English for work, for example. Very simple things, right? A1 levels, things that were not very difficult, but that could solve, or at least could, let's say, narrow that gap between not knowing anything of English and having some skills for work, for the development of the use of technology, for applying for a job, well, different things. So every project, I would say, that is it's a challenge and it's an adventure. And in the case of English, we are all the time, or maybe I overgeneralize a little bit, but we are all the time like pulling down these barriers, right, related to these generalized ideas that English is not for everyone, that only those who are privileged are able to learn this content. And it is, I would say, it depends on us, it depends on teachers, right, how accessible we make it, right,
and how relevant as well, I suppose.
How relevant as well, definitely. And how let's say accessible we make it to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
In many senses, not only in levels of language, but also in possibilities, right? In offers, well, different things, I would say, right?
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Future Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for BetUK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, BET has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
One thing I wanted to pick up on when you were talking about the project, the audio guides for the blind, that you did them in Spanish and in English.
Mhm.
And were they designed in English to be a learning tool, really, for the secondary students? Was that the case?
Definitely.
Of giving them some listening, which was context relevant and so I suppose adapted to their level as well. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. The idea was that those guides could become a resource as well, but not only as a teaching resource. It could be used as a resource, but it is a didactic resource to teach geography, English, because they were available in Spanish and English, and also Spanish, and also the organization of a guide and the register of the type of guides and the information, because the information that was there was there were many elements that students knew about the names of the lakes, about the different let's say accidents in geography, right? The different types of let's say, for example, something that I remember is that, well, the island of Tierra del Fuego is divided in two parts. Then let's say central and north, that is quite arid, and the south, that is let's say surrounded by mountains. So those concepts were very clear. Let's say students knew that very well, right? The only thing that we did was to turn it into English, right? So the purpose was didactic, but not only to teach English. They could be used for that as well.
Right, I understand. And who did the actual recording? Was it the teachers or the students, or a combination?
Well, actually, it was a combination. What we did was to something that I love doing is to, let's say, to work with networks, right? It is not one institution in isolation. It was, the special needs students school together with the teacher training college, and also the university. In this case, the university where I work, the University of Tierra del Fuego, that has got a radio. So our students went to the radio to do the recording of the audio guide, just to have a better quality and to make it more professional. So the three institutions work together, right, with the needs and the different elements. And then, right, one of our teachers that was not working at the teaching training college, but it was let's say a teacher that had some special courses, technical special courses, right, help us with the development of the frames. I don't know how to call this, neither in English nor in Spanish, but there is a frame where you write Braille, right? They have special
I don't know
doors.
either.
Yeah,
I
well, it's
don't know
very,
the
very
name.
specific. And this technique, this teacher that was very committed also helped us with let's say printing, the 3D printing of this let's say these elements. And well, we work together on this. So all the students work with teachers of different institutions just to solve a situation, and this collaborates to the this so fashionable nowadays learning by experience, the experiential teaching and learning, right? Definitely, this is an experience that nobody, right, none of the ones who participated will never forget.
I can
So
imagine it's a
it's
very
something, I mean,
different type of learning and teaching experience, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yes. So, and they learned English because, well, this was a special seminar on voluntary work for pre-service teachers, the teachers of English, and also for students, also pre-services, the teachers of biology. So they worked together on this. We were really very happy of achieving the goal and being able to collaborate to something that was really that was real, that it was not part of the theory only, right? But well, this was a very, let's say, something very, I would say, innovative. But there are many other projects that we can do, like just a little twists from a common language or language lesson or English lesson into, right, something that really make us reflect upon the language that we learn, and also our role of, I mean, the responsibility that we have as teachers or future teachers. What I like to say is that there's always the possibility of working, I mean, answering these questions whenever you have a lesson or a project, or it could be only a class as well, right? Of course, we should combine, right, the topics and the themes we are teaching, and consider, of course, the linguistic content that we would be teaching, right? Functions, skills. But then once we've got that, when we are planning that, we need to establish a relationship with other subjects and to think a little bit out of the box in that, right? And to see, I mean, if we can answer these three questions related to what critical citizenship is based on. How can this lesson or this project contribute to social justice? This means the equitable access to knowledge and to possibilities, considering that as a right. Or how can this contribute to the development of citizenship? Or how can this lesson contribute to what we consider this good education? Is it creative? Is it sustainable? Is it pro-social? Is it practical? So in some cases, you can answer the three questions, but in many other cases, at least having one of these questions answered, there is, I mean, that turn of the screw that makes something, let's say, that learning, let's say, transcend the English, right? I would say.
Yes, very interesting. And you've talked about how English can be combined with other subjects, like geography, for example, with the maps. What do you think? What are the other subjects that you think English lends itself to very well to collaboration?
Well, any of them, I would say, right? Um, you can think about math, right, as well, considering projects related to math for different levels and English altogether. Also, PE, right, as I mentioned before, in relationship with the language camp and doing an immersive experience, right, while doing some, let's say, physical work at the same time with different challenges or according to the topics, and well, I don't know, students may let's say get stamps or stickers according to the challenges they go through. And well, you can combine things that are more creative, things that are more physical. You can also think about, well, Spanish and English can work together very well as well. And the sciences, history, literature, right? And when focusing on literature, right, we should consider, right, that literature is always, I would say, a context. I don't like to say an excuse, but it's a different context to reflect upon, right? An idea, a bunch of knowledge, something that, I mean, we can reflect upon experiences, situations, and also, right, we can think about something totally different. For example, in relation to literature, I can give you two examples, right, using literature with different purposes, because we've got like the traditional use of literature in terms of, well, analyzing setting, characters, right, and well, this traditional analysis. But for example, we had a very interesting experience with initial teacher education and students from secondary school, in which there was an issue related to how to teach English language to students who were related to the SAD spectrum, I would say. In Argentina, in public schools, well, nowadays that issue is improved, I would say. But for many, many years, right, English was, or at least in my province, optionals for students suffering from autism or TDAH, or because, right, as they had this issue related to the abstraction of the language, teachers, right, not teachers, but I mean, the directors or coordinators believed that it was something very hard for them to learn. And it was by means of literature that we were able to, let's say, narrow the gap of this object, picture, and word, right, sequence in terms of understanding the abstraction. We made use of a story, a very well-known story that is called Stand Tall, Molly Lou Mellow. That's a story for children, but the target was not children, they were teens. However, we were able to work with very simple issues related to language, for example, recognition of vocabulary about parts of the body, description of personality. Well, and what we did was working with the story and doing, let's say, simple things like very concrete activities at the very beginning, and then we worked on a Venn diagram, right? Let's say on the one hand me, and on the other hand Molly, and well, what is it that we've got in common? Which are the things that we are different one from the other? And little by little, students were able to concentrate on very simple, let's say, issues from the linguistic point of view. As I said before, vocabulary about physical appearance, vocabulary about personality. Of course, we paid a lot of attention not to include more than 4 items per area, for example, to identify parts of the body, and then, of course, to reflect upon the importance of uniqueness. That is what makes it different. This, let's say, opportunity for students, when they have learned about physical appearance, to reflect upon the importance of being unique and accepting others' differences. And little by little, we move from the object, the Molly thing, right, that little girl, the picture of the story, and then the word in English. So, well, these are things that are not very difficult to do, but that demand that we can think more out of the box in terms of teaching English, and not only considering that linguistic area, but something else that we can like unlock by means of English, I would say.
Very interesting. I don't know who said it, but it has been said on a number of occasions that a language, English, for example, is a subject in search of topics, because you can make English about anything. So this sounds like a really good idea to focus upon, rather than the usual things that you find in course books, etc. Is that part of what is behind this critical pedagogy? Critical citizenship, you think?
Yeah.
When it comes to ELT, for example?
Definitely. I believe that there are like two issues that I believe that teachers and teachers to be should consider, right? The first one, of course, is the subject that we are teaching, of course, because our students should, be able to develop skills and let's say move forward in the development of the language, definitely.
Yeah.
But acknowledging the fact that this content that you would be providing with will contribute to the formation of, let's say, citizens. And this is something that we need to reflect upon that. How can my subject contribute to the development of this boy or girl, right, as a citizen, right? What do I want to, how can I collaborate with that? So that's why at the beginning of our talk, I said, well, critical citizenship is an approach to materials, to resources, to students, it is not only English. It is English and everything else that comes with it, because there are many intercultural issues that come up when you teach English, and that you discover, about your own language, and the cultures that are interwoven, right, within our own language and also with English. Not everybody speaks in the same way in English, right? Depends on the age, on the level of education, on the area where they live. Well, the same happens in Argentina. And sometimes that issue of otherness is so very well visibilized, so make it visible for us, right, when the other is too far away. But when it is very close to us, that otherness is very difficult to discover. So it is just the contribution. I don't mean that we should be teaching something else but English. But what I say is that we've got the responsibility to teach that plus and to make students reflect upon current issues in our local communities, to be updated with information, to be involved in the problems that the community is going through, right? This is the way, in my opinion, in which we collaborate with the development of critical citizens. We are contributing to the education of these young people and young teachers to be as well, right? So it is not an option. And in the case of Argentina, this is very important as well, because, there is a law that prescribes that is the law of education, that, it is not an option for teachers of English, specifically talking about that, to consider that approach into teaching. It is a must. We need to know, right, the documents that contribute to the development of teaching English, right, and contributing to the development of language learners, citizens, and also, right, the development of plurilingual and intercultural visions of languages. So as well, right, I would say, and this is a call for actions to my colleagues, we cannot, let's say, avoid knowing, right, what the national documents and the regional documents say about the way of teaching English in Argentina? This is something that is, that has been thought, that there is a whole linguistic policy that has been developed for many years, and there is an intention. It is not, let's say, randomly that Argentina has got many universities all over the country and many, let's say, teacher training colleges in which English is taught professionally. We do not become teachers of English only by learning the language. We learn many other things. We learn pedagogy, we do the practicum, we study history of Argentina and let's say local and international history, and many aspects that contribute to the development of professionals, educators who teach English. So that makes a difference. So that's why I always like to say we need to be up to those standards and to start, let's say, reflecting upon that, because students learn no matter what we do or what we don't. So, well, I believe that should be the way, right? But, well, I also believe that there is a need to collaborate into the, let's say, supporting, scaffolding the development of teaching in not only at the initial level, but also in continuing professional development as well, right? Making teachers aware of the importance, right, of the subject that they are teaching. It's not just whatever, but it's that subject that they are teaching, right? That makes a difference.
Of course. And you were talking earlier about initial teacher training. And obviously in your context in Tierra del Fuego, this idea of critical citizenship sounds like it's well embedded. Is it the case in other parts of the country?
Unfortunately, it is not, right? Argentina, it's a huge country, and we've got, let's say, independent decisions, right? I mean, even though the national law of education, right, frames, right, the teaching of in this case, the teaching in general terms and the teaching of English together with documents like NAP that are in Spanish, núcleos de aprendizaje prioritarios, right? Let's say priority nucleus of content that should be taught. But within each province, there are documents that are called, let's say, curriculum, right, or regional curriculum development that is just developed in the area. There are documents with different levels of concretion, I would say, that of course are framed in these national documents that I mentioned before, but each province has a different, I would say, rhythm, right? And depends on, let's say, the traditions and the relationship with Buenos Aires first. And then, right, if we go to the north, they are more traditional, right? If we go to Patagonia, right, we are not. And so depends on the different regions. We hope, right, we are all the time contributing, right, to providing courses, activities by means of different national institutions, public institutions with the role of the state and so on and so forth. But well, it depends on the political decisions as well, right? For some politicians, right, politicians in relation to education, ministries of education and so on and so forth, there is a place, right, where you can expand on those topics. And for some others, there is no agenda for that. So when there is no agenda, it is teachers, the ones who solve that in the way they can. And of course, with the ideas that they believe they're priority for the learning of their own students, right? So, but it's quite uneven, I would say.
Right. Yeah. It kind of makes sense, as you said, in a very big country. I'm actually really interested in the degree of autonomy that different provinces, for example, in a country like of Argentina has over what they teach, the curriculum, in particular when it comes to language teaching, but not only. And it sounds like there's quite a large degree of autonomy that is given to each province when it comes to setting the curriculum, etc. Is there, though, a national curriculum that is at least a guideline, and then the provinces decide which parts of that they want to prioritize?
That's it. That's it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It works in that way, right? Then there are some other elements of control that, I mean, whether they work or not, this contribute to the let's say, sustainability of those programs to actually be developed at different levels, right? There are provinces in which, for example, English is taught since primary school, right? And there are some provinces in which English is taught only, right, at secondary school.
Right. So is
the
that
frame, let's say, the frame provides different different contexts, I would say, but the idea is that they move forward into providing more hours of teaching English, right, all over the country. But well, there are many variables that can work on that, right? Maybe the lack of teachers all over the country, right? And I would say, again, this idea of making visible that content, the learning of English, as a right or as a commodity.
Right.
And that is a whole issue.
And that decision is up to each of the provinces, whether they want to make
up to a
it
level,
kind
I
of
would
compulsory.
Say. Yes, up to a level, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about autonomy within the province? Is it pretty much set by whoever is in charge of the education system within the province, whether English, for example, is compulsory in all of primary schools or all of secondary schools, or is there a certain degree of flexibility when it comes to the school level as well, or is that not the case?
No, that is not the case. It is usually top down and is let's say decided by governments and areas of ministries of education. Yeah.
And is there anywhere in the country where English is not taught, or whether there's a resistance against teaching English, for example, that you know of?
Well, actually, what I would say, it is not that it's not taught, but that is very timidly taught. As I was telling you, there are some cases in which English is taught only at secondary school. Like this is something that happened like 30 years ago. Right? Only secondary schools had English and other foreign languages, not only English, right? But I would say that it has to do with, as I said before, with an agenda, with a linguistic agenda, right? Whether it is important for that community that citizens learn English and what for. And there's still some nowadays, well, I wouldn't say this, I mean, like generalizing things, but now there is let's say a tendency to rediscover English as a foreign language because of the needs of, right, the economy
because we
of
live
knowledge.
in a more globalized world, for example.
More globalized world, because there are more, let's say, jobs that need the development of English skills, right? But it's out of a need, but still, right, the system of education, I think that there is no, let's say, an even or a balanced recognition of the importance or the formative aspect of learning English. And because of that, right, English is not considered as important as other subjects, not yet. There are many areas of the country where this happens, but there are many still that not, right? And in some cases, that is related not only to positions in terms of which are the preconceptions in terms of teaching, right? Do I believe that English is for just few people? It's a commodity, or is it a right on content? But it has to do also with some presuppositions in terms of, well, that content is related or is closely related to an elite, a very close, let's say, group of people, let's say maybe private schools or bilingual schools, or that is not at hand for everyone, or at least that is not at hand, let's say, massively, right? But well, I'm quite let's say, I wouldn't say optimistic, but I'm hopeful, right, that this is let's say is challenged by teachers, let's say younger teachers.
And I presume it sounds like it's also changing the idea of English being opening a way of opening doors for young people's futures to a more kind of international outlook and being able to communicate with other people and for employment opportunities as well.
Yeah, nowadays that I mean, young people can work from their homes, right, and can work in the field of programming, for example, or social networks, and well, different new areas, right, new jobs that are being developed. Well, language is needed, right, from a different point of view. However, right, I believe that there's still some reflection onto the learning of the language, and especially for those who take decisions. In the case of Argentina, right, sometimes people who are in a position to take a decision, right, are not fully aware of all this discussion, or maybe, right, yes, they are quite out, right, of the new
they're not up to date with
that's it. That's
things.
it. That's it.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't think it's just Argentina. I think it happens in lots of places around the world.
Yeah, might be. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Eugenia, to bring this back to critical citizenship, one of the things we talked about projects, we talked about very practical things, but one of the ways you said is how you approach the teaching of this is through texts, and I would love it if, for the benefit of anyone out there listening to this and thinking, okay, I would like to read more about this, where should they start?
Well, first of all, I would say exploring, right, what colleagues are doing, right? Something that I'd like to promote all the times are those dossiers or journals, right, from Argentinians, local researchers. We are very much interested in that. There is a great bunch of literature in terms of that in the area. Also, working with others, right? Not working in isolation. And of course, being, let's say, curious enough to participate in different, let's say, in different networkings, communities of practice, right?
Yeah.
That can provide many insights, right? Not only conferences, that, by the way, I would like to invite everybody for our next conference, but not only conferences, but discussions, right? Reflections with colleagues, asking students, right? The first community we should be immersed in is in the one we are teaching, and not teaching in isolation. And then giving credits to colleagues that are doing great jobs more than sometimes, right? Of course, we study, right, big names all over the world in the world of ELT, and this is fantastic. But we should also listen to each other. There's a great bunch of talent in Argentina, right, in the world of ELT. And we should start at home, right? Giving credit to people, right, who are not only very well prepared, but also that they are doing innovative projects at different levels, right? There are many examples at the universities in Argentina. There are many examples. The University of UNPAS is doing a great job with the English program, right? The University of UNSAM as well, not only the traditional ones, but there's always a place, right, in which we can, let's say, learn and provide something else to that community of practice. And that's why I believe that, well, the federation that I am working at can contribute to that, right? It is not, it is something that is very, I've always been asked what is a federation different from a teaching association, right? Well, and a federation is just like an institution that frames local communities of teaching, right? And when we started, let's say, preparing this talk, I mentioned decentering. It is very important that we listen to each other at the same level, not only looking up to the big names who are going to give us like the recipe, right, to teach English. We should pay attention to them, but there are many colleagues that are next to us that have a say, right? And that sometimes they don't feel confident enough to show, to share, right, their work, and they are doing marvelously, right? So, well, I think that, well, FAPI, right, and the conference of FAPI provides that opportunity for all teachers or who are in the role of teaching in different areas of knowledge related to English teaching, right, to share knowledge of what they are doing, right, at different levels. So whether it is face-to-face or online, usually we do one-on-one, right? We love, let's say, sharing with colleagues of the world, right? What happens here in Argentina, and of course to listen to the rest of the world.
Fantastic. There's some great advice I'm going to touch upon before I come in. I do want to talk to you more about FAPI, but one of the things you said there that was really interesting, I think, was this idea of teachers actually paying attention to what's going on in the next classroom or in the same school or to their local colleagues. It's unfortunate that probably because teachers don't really have a lot of time to do so, but a lot of the time we don't really know what the person in the next classroom is doing, which is such a shame. So having the opportunity just to speak in a staff room, or if you're working online in a community of practice, is so important. And exactly what you said, the idea of start local, find out what people are doing in your local community, which you've talked so much about today, or in the same school, because you have the same context. The learners are probably this very similar, and someone coming from another country will probably have less to say. Well, may have some big ideas, some interesting ideas about general methodology, but they will definitely have less relevant things to say than the person that is actually teaching next door to you. I really believe that.
Definitely, right? And of course, I mean, those who come from far away, right, can also find out that there are not so many differences, right, in different areas, right? Sometimes we share similar problems, right? Or we face similar challenges, right?
Yeah.
But well, you know that we are working on in the island of Tierra del Fuego. There are 3 cities, actually 2 cities and a very small town.
Yeah.
The very well known Ushuaia that everybody might know about, And
Yes.
Rio Grande, that is in the north, that is the industrial part of the island. And in the middle of that, there is a very small community that is called Tolwyn, right? The name is the Selknam name, that means the heart of the island. And that community that is very small and in which time seems to pass very, very slowly, right? Well, there we started a project that is called, in Spanish, it's called Más juego, más aprendo, right? That means the more I play, the more I learn. And it's an integrated project for students of primary school, for the whole community. This is a state project that is held in an area, in an institution. It's not a school. We've got, let's say, spots that are called creative poles, where science and robotics and technology and English and many areas of knowledge, let's say, work together. And this is a program in which students work with projects, right? Constructing things, creating projects, learning science, right? Learning math, English, and also learning about logic. So I wanted to mention this because this is something students go just for fun. It is not the school, right? They just go there to have fun and to work on the computers, and they do some, let's say, Minecraft context, and they solve situations, and, well, they are doing digital stories, for example. Well, different things. In the learning and playing, right? I believe that these kind of examples are concrete examples in which knowledge is at service of freedom, I would say, right? They more than learn that in that very small community, right, in which that is isolated from the world, right? There are students from 5-year-old to 8-year-old learning English. And there is no function for that, because I don't know whether they would be able to come across, let's say, a native speaker or to travel around the world, but they are learning that because they can.
Yeah.
So, well, this is what we've been talking about, right? Providing opportunities to expand their own boundaries, cultural boundaries, knowledge boundaries, and not only in places related to, associated with scholastic, right, with school. But there are things we can do as part of the state to provide that as well.
Definitely. Really, really interesting. Eugenia, you mentioned FAPI, FAAPI, if anybody wants to look it up.
Yes.
And this is the Federation in Argentina of Associations of English Teachers. And I've always really been interested in teacher associations in Argentina because in a lot of other countries, particularly in our region, there seems to be one kind of big teacher association for English teachers,
Right.
and not a lot else happening, with some exceptions. I think one of the things I really think is interesting about Argentina as a country is that, and this I've kind of noticed, is that there are lots of local kind of teacher associations, and the role of FAPI, as you said, is to bring those together, to have one focus on a national level. You have an annual conference, etc. And as you mentioned, sometimes the conference is face-to-face and sometimes now it's online. This year, it's online. So if anybody wants to have an experience of FAPI, they can. When is it being held, and
Well,
what do
it
you
is very
think?
soon. It is
Okay,
very
so there's
soon.
still
It is
time for
very
people
soon.
to join, though.
Yeah, there is still time for people to join us this year, right? Is the 58th edition, right, of FAPI conference. The title of the conference is The Future of English, Challenges, Innovations, and Opportunities. Every year, right, there is a theme that frames, right, the different, let's say, axes or areas of knowledge from which teachers or those professionals who are in the role of teacher can share their insights. This year is this one, and actually something that we changed since the pandemic is that on FAPI 2021, right, and the pandemic, it was the first edition we did online. And because it was out of let's say a situation, a global situation we were undergoing. The thing is that because of that, we discovered that working online, doing an conference online, could expand also the boundaries of the conference and enlarge the let's say the possibilities of exchanging with other teachers from the rest of the world. So that's why we took the decision of doing one face-to-face and one, let's say, next year is going to be face-to-face. And another thing is that as it is a federation that frames local associations, the local associations are the ones who, let's say, decide to become hosts for the following FAPI conference. So the idea is that we can also, let's say, favor the local economies, and that people who are in the field of teaching can learn about the idiosyncrasy and, let's say, the cultural situation of Santiago del Estero, for example, or Tucumán, or maybe Chubut, or maybe Jujuy. Well, last year it was in La Pampa, for example. So it is a huge country, and there are very, let's say, diverse local cultures in which English is taught. And we respect the locality and the idiosyncrasy of that. Of course, we are most of the time supported, right? And not only by sponsors, editorials, well, the British Council has worked with us many occasions, right? Oxford University, and so on and so forth. And this year, something that is very interesting is that we've got the support of many institutions from the world, right?
Wonderful.
Institutions that is very, it's something to mention, right? Universities, associations, international associations like IETFL, which we are part of, associations of teachers of English in Africa, in India, in, well, different parts of the world. What makes it richer, I would say.
Wonderful, definitely. That's so good to hear. And I'm a big fan of the FAPI conference.
Oh, well, I'm happy to hear that.
I've had the pleasure to speak in person a few times, and it's always been a great experience.
Yes.
So let's see if I can. I don't know if I'm going to be able to come along to the next one, but I think I'm very tempted.
Yeah, okay. So we let's say you are invited to this coming FAPI.
Yes,
I know that
definitely.
attending. So we are happy to have you.
Great. So on that point, Eugenia, I'm just going to bring things to a close. I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your knowledge and experience about, in particular, critical citizenship, but lots of other things as well. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thank you very much for this invite. I believe that, this kind of interviews and podcasts and opportunities to share some insights and exchange favor, right, the profession. And, well, we learn from each other. So thank you, Graham, for this invitation.
Pleasure.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE. using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for BetUK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, BET has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.